We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
I think we need to get that Christmas scene back up there if we can. One, it's always nice to see a little Christmas scene. We want to see the chipmunks and the squirrels hopping around. Better than watching the crowds at the mall. Boy, have you been to the mall recently?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's. Tis the season for consumerism. Welcome to a brand spanking new edition of Granite State Live. Great to have you along on this Tuesday evening, the 9th day of December, 2025. I'm your host, Keith Hansen, the unapologetic contrarian conservative, heavily armed as always, never apologizing for my toxic white masculinity. My doctor considers it a pre-existing condition. I can't help it, folks. I was born this way. Never apologizing for my Christian faith. Our call-in number, if you'd like to be a part of tonight's program, toll-free, 833-603-TALK. That's 833-603-8255. And if you would like to join the program via video, you can do that as well. Just send an email to the production team, granitestatelive@gmail.com. Put the words video link in the subject line, and the production team will get that link out to you lickety-split. Julian not in the studio tonight, so we are going to dive right into it. Got a great show coming up for you tonight. Many of you know that I am decidedly and vocally anti-cannabis. For a number of reasons. Many of you who have been following my media, you know my background in law enforcement and as a trainer, and especially as a de-escalation trainer. We talk about response to individual behavior. I talk a lot about use of force, and you hear people talking about law enforcement officers using use of force. And to be honest with you, police don't use force. And armed, responsible private citizens don't use force. They respond to other people's behaviors. And so if a person is acting in a combative way, if they are posing an imminent threat to somebody's safety or their welfare or the safety or welfare of somebody else, then it necessitates a behavioral response action. And one of the big issues that I have with cannabis is this ever-increasing desire to push the THC levels higher and higher and higher. And it's really no surprise, especially now as the edible forms of cannabis and THC are becoming more and more prevalent. It's a lot easier to hide that. It used to be, you knew who was smoking the reefer because you could smell it. Today, with the vaping and with the edibles and the gummies and all the THC-laced garbage that's out there, people can be consuming this surreptitiously. You're not going to know that they're doing this. And of course, the emphasis now is to push the THC content higher and higher and higher and higher. So it's no surprise that the single greatest cause of psychotic breaks today is high-potency THC. And as a matter of fact, we've had that conversation here on air. So I am not a fan in any way, shape, or form of cannabis. I think it's a gateway drug. I think it's dangerous. A lot of people are going to disagree with that. And, of course, that's where you have the opportunity to challenge me directly if you so choose. 833-603-8255. Coming up at 7:30, we're going to be checking in with Anissa Ponomariovit, and I hope I pronounced her name correct. Ponomariovit, I believe is the name. And we're going to be talking about the spending bill that Congress just passed to reopen the government had a time bomb of sorts in it, added by the Senate in the 11th hour. Included was a provision that the hemp industry says will ban 95% of hemp products currently on the market by next year. Now, we're talking about hemp products. We're not talking about the THC and all that. But where does one end and one begin? Because the bottom line is that cannabis and the hemp plant, whether it's THC or whether it's a CBD product, it's coming from, we got the wrong lower up on that one, it's coming from the same plant, and it's originating from the same plant, biological product. So what exactly is the difference between the THC and the CBD? What exactly is a safe product? And why are some people referring to this as, I love this, the most maha, of course, being Make America Healthy Again, why this could be the most maha thing that has ever occurred. We're going to be talking with Anissa. That'll be coming up at 7 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, we're going to be talking about Portland's socialist disaster. Does that serve as a wake-up call for Mamdani in New York City voters, and what the nation and New York City can learn from the social experiment in Portland, Oregon? Now, I had I'm not going to say distinct pleasure, but I visited Portland and Seattle 2 months ago. And the only thing that I could think coming from New Hampshire is that, wow, this is Joyce Craig's socialist utopia. Literally, people zombie-like staggering around the streets of Portland, higher than a kite, staggering around the streets of Seattle. It was not the kind of place that I would ever want to go and visit. I mean, I had to travel there for business, so be that as it may, I had no choice. I was there, I did what I had to do, and I got the hell out. And I was actually very happy about that. But not a kind of place that I would want to take a family. Beautiful area, beautiful part of the country. But unfortunately, the policies have completely destroyed those two states, Washington and Oregon. So we're going to be talking about the Oregoners, interesting term, with Dennis Neal, the author of the upcoming book, Oregoners. He serves as a spokesperson for Save Our Cities, an organization that is working to counter the effects of anti-business policies and ideological extremism on local economics. That'll be coming up at 8 o'clock. And then at 8:30, we're going to be talking about Zelensky nuking the peace deal with Russia. A headline on the Drudge Report now that Trump is siding with Russia in the Russia-Ukraine war. So we're going to have that conversation with Kenneth Abramowitz. He's the author of The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. Basically, saving America from everything. That'll be coming up in the 8:30 segment. Talking about the I thought this was kind of interesting, and this is really an interesting seg into the 8 o'clock hour. Portland's socialist disaster serving as a wake-up call for the city of New York. Interesting article that came out today on New Hampshire Journal. Headline, High Costs Drive Bay Staters North. Oh, dear God in heaven. Will they mass up New Hampshire? This is an article from Michael Graham. Reading from the article, 1 in 3 Massachusetts residents tell Suffolk University pollsters they've considered moving out of the Bay State due to the high cost of living. And according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the number one destination for Massachusetts residents making a move is... Care to take a guess? Yeah, right here. The question is whether or not northward migration from tax-high deep blue Massachusetts is good news for the Granite State, or will it mass up New Hampshire? I think we know the answer to that. Oh, and by the way, it's not just Bay State residents that are bailing. it's businesses bailing as well, too. This year, two major employers, Analogic and Syncor, announced that they are moving their corporate headquarters from Massachusetts to Salem, New Hampshire. That was a social media post from State Rep Joe Sweeney last week. Some people call that luck. It's not luck. It is the predictable result of years of smart policy, disciplined leadership, and a clear belief in free market principles. Now, this is a poll that came out in November. The Don't Mass Up New Hampshire slogan, that's a Kelly Ayotte slogan that she used. In the words of Michael Graham, to deliver a 9-point beatdown to Democrat Joyce Craig last year, even though Vice President Kamala Harris carried New Hampshire in Democrats. So this is the interesting topic here. And we talk about this a lot, and you've heard me joke about it, and you've heard the expression as well. There's a lot of truth told in jest. So I'm going to lean on that for a moment. The number of Massachusetts residents that have moved to New Hampshire, and specifically during the, I hate to use the word pandemic, the plandemic, that whole COVID nightmare, 2020, 2021. You had people that were leaving New York State, primarily down around Manhattan and Long Island. You had people from Connecticut. You had the Massachusetts people that were moving up here because of the restrictions. They look at New Hampshire and they say New Hampshire is a free state. I'm not talking about it in the context of the Free Staters and the Porcupine Movement and all that hullabaloo. We're just talking about the quality of life. And you have to understand something. And I think a lot of people watching this program do. A lot of people who are familiar with GraniteGrok and who are watching GraniteGrok, you are familiar with this. I think the people who read New Hampshire Journal, by and large, are familiar with this. But we're talking about the uneducated masses. And when I say uneducated, of course, I mean the politically still asleep. The people who don't quite understand the synergy and the connection between politics and your quality of life. And I think a lot of people, by and large, don't want to get involved in politics. They don't like it. They don't want to deal with it. But at some point, there comes a time when you have to get involved. You have to. There's no choice. Your quality of life depends on it. I moved to New Hampshire in 2015, and I moved from Florida. Why? I don't know, especially when the temperatures are in the single digits. Kind of makes me wonder, what the hell was I thinking? But when I moved to New Hampshire, it was not a significant, and that was by choice, and it was only for a year. I'm just going to give it a year, and then I'm going to go back to Florida. And then 1 year became two became three, and so now it's been 10 years that I've been in the Granite State. And with the exception of climate, there has not been a significant change in my quality of life. I have to be honest. I was having a conversation with a good friend tonight who thankfully bailed me out of my car ran out of gas because I have a hybrid. Yeah, I know, I have a hybrid. So to Dave, I appreciate your assistance. But Dave was, we were talking about it after he managed to get me back on the road. And he said, is there any place that you wouldn't move? And I said, I wouldn't move to Massachusetts. Dave, of course, has his business in Massachusetts, but lives in New Hampshire. I would not move to Massachusetts. I don't care how much the salary was. I don't care what the benefits would be. I would never move to Massachusetts. I left Mass for a reason, and I have no intention of ever going back. I have no intention of ever moving to a place like Connecticut or New York. Would I go back to Florida? I would consider it. But there are certain things that I'm looking for in a state that I would call home. Number one, low crime. I don't want to have to deal with a lot of crime. I want to feel safe in my home. I want to feel safe in my community. I want to feel safe when I go to the grocery store. By and large, the area of Florida that I happen to live in, that was a pretty safe area. The area of New Hampshire that I'm in, absolutely safe. Do I carry everywhere I go? Absolutely. It's just my personal rule. Cell phone, wallet, keys, Glock. It's just how it works. Taxes. That's a big thing. Now, as a property owner, I'm absolutely disgusted by the property taxes, but it's a trade-off, right? Because we don't have sales tax, we don't have an income tax here in the state, so it's a trade-off. What you would pay in a sales tax or what you would pay in an income tax, okay, it's we don't have a lot of tolls. I mean, with the exception of the hooks at tolls here, there, whatever the case may be, $1 here, maybe $2 there, whatever. Taxes low. It's a quality of life thing here. It's also the mindset and the direction that I see my state going. Now, Massachusetts blue, no question about it. And I don't see Massachusetts getting any better. I see Massachusetts only getting worse. Now, of course, that pendulum has to swing, and sooner or later that pendulum, it reaches that apex, can't go any further, it pauses momentarily, and then it starts to swing back in the other direction. Now, whether or not the birthplace of the American Revolution can actually figure out the mistakes that it's made, pick itself up by the bootstraps, and start to make corrections, that remains to be seen. Quality of life and the future, what the quality of life looks like down the road. That's important. And there is a disconnect between people who stagger into a voting booth and what they perceive as their quality of life. Now, it's very easy to be a refugee. It's a hell of a lot harder to try to fix the problem. Now, for the people in Massachusetts who don't like what they have, the first question that I have is, first of all, how do you vote? Do you vote for a Republican government? Do you vote for a Democrat system? Are you pro-business? Are you pro-reduction of taxes? Are you pro-law enforcement? These are things that have an immediate and demonstrable impact on your quality of life. Do you understand how your vote affects your quality of life? And I would submit to you that not a lot of people do. Because they vote one way, and then they bitch and complain and moan because, well, my taxes are high. My property taxes are high. My gas prices are high. You've got illegal immigrants that are getting everything, and I get nothing. Okay, how did you vote? You can't vote for people and then turn around and excoriate them because they're not doing what it is that you want. If that is the case, then you're falling prey to one of the oldest games in the book. And you have to understand, politics is all about money. It is about power. It is about stature. It is not about helping you. It's one of the reasons why I am just anti every candidate that's out there today. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. It's one of the reasons why I despise Scott Brown the way that I do. It's the reason that I despise the majority of candidates. Because they're fake. They promise you something that they have no intention of delivering on. They want that political office because they want the money, they want the title, they want the respect, and they want the guarantee of a future for their posterity. It's an ego-driven business. And that's why I, for all intents and purposes, despise them all. But you have to understand the connection between how you vote and what your quality of life is. Now, I would submit to Massachusetts, if you don't like it, fix the problem. But don't come to New Hampshire and take a red state. We're getting audio feed. All right. Don't come to New Hampshire and then continue to vote in the same manner and for the same party that got you into the situation that you're in Massachusetts. Now, that's not to say that everybody in Massachusetts is bad. Of course, there are some people that are common sense. But when you look at the overwhelming majority of people in Massachusetts, they're Democrat. Now, we have to make the differentiation between a tribal Democrat and a person who is actually a Democrat. Big D, small d. I've gotten into this in my media before, so I'll give you a very brief explanation on this. Big D, you're a part of the system. Little d, you just identify. Big R, you're a part of the system. Little r, you're one of the people out there that are espousing the virtues of the Republican Party. And I've said before, many people, just because of the nature of tribalism, are Democrats because that's how their great-grandfather voted, and that's how their grandfather voted, and that's how their father voted. And so we've always been a Democrat family. We've always been a Republican family. So we're going to continue to vote in the same way. But this concept that the Democrat Party is making a positive change to society, that the Democrat Party has made any positive changes to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, is an insidious concept. It is absolutely without a patina of credibility. So if you are coming across the border from Massachusetts into New Hampshire and you're voting blue, congratulations. It's only a matter of time before the Granite State becomes the very thing that you despised and tried to flee. Same thing in California. People leaving California, moving to places like Texas, moving to places like Florida. And what happens? They bring their voting habits with them. And you cannot take there and bring there here without here eventually becoming there. It's the simple law of distribution. So before, and if you are in Massachusetts watching this, if you are a Republican voter, if you're a common sense voter, and pro-law enforcement is important to you, low taxes important to you, a pro-positive business climate is important to you, if healthy schools, I'm not talking about public education systems that are merely regurgitation points for leftist talking points, take inventory of that. But think about how who you vote for impacts how your quality of life is. If you don't like it, then you have to look at the movers and the shakers and the policymakers that created the situation that you're in. If you simply screw up your own environment and then flee and then bring those voting habits to a new area, congratulations. You are a political parasite. You have infected a healthy area, you have mutated it, and now you're expanding into new fertile territory where you will do the same thing. So keep yourself and your leftist politics the hell out of New Hampshire. We don't want it. But if you recognize what makes New Hampshire special, if you recognize why New Hampshire is a free state and why people want to come here, and you are dedicated to doing your part to preserve the integrity of the live free or die state, then come on in. Oh, and by the way, if you're from Massachusetts, the left-hand lane is a passing lane. It is not your personal travel lane. That's the one thing that I would ask. Not your personal travel lane. It's a passing lane. I know we have to work on those things. Also, speed limits are here for a reason. It's not a 100-mile-an-hour raceway because you think that you're not going to be held accountable. But I digress. We are going to take a very, very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be checking in with, and again, I'm going to hack her name up, and I apologize, Enisa Ponomariovic. I hope I got that correct. We're going to be talking about Congress doing potentially the most Maha thing ever by banning most hemp products. We're going to talk about that, differentiate between hemp, THC, CBD, all of those good things, and have a fantastic conversation with Enisa when Granite State Live continues. Much more after this. Don't go away.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Unleashing your humble alpha is the key factor to unlocking profound leadership, unshakable confidence, clarity of purpose, and the quality of life you dream of. As combat veterans and military leaders Stephen Kuhn and Lane Ballone decode how you can master your life, conquer everything that stands in your way, improve your ability to cope with stress, and run toward greatness. You can find Unleash Your Humble Alpha on Amazon.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive. And I raise my hands to the sky. What a feeling, time to feel it. This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Hollywood has sold its soul with woke agendas, hypocritical elites, and a culture in ruins. But one man dares to fight back. Mike Holman, the world's greatest newsman, teams up with billionaire Pierce Polk. Armed with cutting-edge AI and unlimited grit, they infiltrate Tinseltown's underbelly, expose the rot, and launch an all-out assault on the media machine. Blockbusters, written by best-selling author Scott McKay. It's a satirical thrill ride to reclaim American storytelling and disrupt the oligarchy and ignite the spark of true culture. Because some blockbusters are meant to bust the system and save the silver screen, one blockbuster at a time. You can find Blockbusters in Amazon.
Yeah, I know. Wait, I don't know. Yeah, you just stand up. Look at that. It's so sad.
Welcome back to Granite State Live on this Tuesday evening, the 9th day of December 2025. Great to have you along on this chilly evening. You know, this is one of the best times of the year, I have to be honest. I really, really, really love Christmas. It's my birthday, so I mean, I naturally have an affinity towards it. But the problem is that period of time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it just goes by so fast. It's like the blink of an eye, and boom, next thing you know, you're sitting, fat from eggnog in a pile of wrapping paper going, where the hell did the past 4 weeks go? They really, really fly by. But the good thing is that as soon as Christmas is over, New Year's comes, and then it is 3 months until spring. So we have something to look forward to. All right, so in this segment, did Congress do the most MAHA, that's Make America Healthy, thing ever by essentially banning most hemp products? Now, as mentioned during the opening portion of the program, and then also for those of you that have been a part of my media for the past couple of years, you know exactly where I stand on marijuana recreationally. You know exactly where I stand on medicinal marijuana. I have a different, viewpoint, so to speak, when we talk about CBD, when we're talking about the things that are non-intoxicating. And I absolutely do believe that there is medicinal value to the hemp plant. I don't necessarily think that you're getting all of the benefits by doing bong hits off the green leafy substance. I think that's an excuse for people that just want to go out and have an excuse for doing something that may still be illegal in their particular areas. And interestingly enough, talking about Massachusetts, now Massachusetts is starting to look at how they could go about undoing the legalization of marijuana and potentially now reclassifying that in a criminal manner, which, again, from the law enforcement perspective and the recognition that high-potency THC products are the single greatest source of psychotic breaks here in this country, I'm all for that. But there's a lot of other value that comes from the hemp plant besides just the intoxicating effects. So to talk about that, I'm joined by Anisa Ponomariovic. How did I do on that last name, Anisa?
Hello, you did great, except we missed few pronunciations. Inesa Ponomariovaite would be the full way to pronounce my last name. But I know it's hard.
My producer is laughing at me right now, so I'm just gonna. I appreciate the correction on that, and I do apologize for butchering that name. I looked at it about 5 minutes before the show started and said I gotta work out the variations here. So, but I appreciate your good spirit there. Thank you.
No, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight.
So you are the founder and CEO of Nisa's Hemp. So first of all, tell us a little bit more about what that organization is, what you do, and how you're involved in this conversation about hemp, THC, CBD, and all the byproducts from the hemp plant.
First of all, what's happening right now, it's been literally something I've been talking about and dreaming for about 7 years possibly now at the moment. And I'm coming from very much a healing background. So I do work with cancer people. I consult. I healed my mother from cancer. I actually healed myself from stage 1 ovarian cancer. So, and I helped many other people to feel better, right? So in that journey over the years, I actually discovered, or it was discovered for thousands of years, but I rediscovered for myself because the information is really not so much public until the President Trump just announced it a month ago, actually 2 months ago. Human body has this very magical system. It's called endocannabinoid system. And that's exactly what President Trump posted on his social accounts. And he said this endocannabinoid system is the magical system that the human body really depends on it for you to be healthy and manage pain, inflammation. So when we're talking about hemp, it's not about just being seeing the hemp as a health benefits. It's literally the essential to your body. But the problem that I had with this industry for all these years, and I really never even imagined that one day the day is gonna come. I was just ready to fight the industry for the rest of my life until, what you just said, the Maho movement is gonna come in and just do the justice. So the cannabis itself really never existed in Mother Nature. I don't know who came up with all these ideas to genetically modify these plants and turn into these high levels of THC, intoxicate our country. And I'm talking about young kids, okay? I'm talking about people walking the brain dead on the street. So this was represented for us for the last 5 to 7 to 10 years as a Mother Nature and all this beautiful plant that's going to heal us. But they forgot to mention to us that it's actually genetically engineered, does not really give you a bunch of health benefits, except there's more harm than any good. And nobody really talked about a hemp plant and a true healing and what that really meant to our human endocannabinoid system that is really the most essential system from the moment you're born. It's like that is the system that controls and regulates everything in your body. So this is really a big deal to me personally, because I've been always this brand that fought for the justice, that always truly believed that one day we're going to recognize the harm of the THC and we're going to recognize how much damage we have done. And hopefully that day is going to come in. And meanwhile, I just did the good work behind the scenes. And right now what's happening looks like we're going to be one of few companies left on the market because we always did what's best.
So let me ask you, let's start off with the combination. So what, the comparison, I should say, excuse me, between CBD and THC. Obviously, THC, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, that is the intoxicating factor of marijuana. That's what people, when people are smoking dope or they're eating the edibles, that's what they're focusing on. And of course, the THC levels now are being inflated, especially in the vapes and the gummies and the edibles. They're pushing well above the 50% THC mark. in a lot of these edibles. It's sky high, and that's creating the psychotic breaks, especially in a lot of the younger people. But the CBD, that does not have the intoxicating effects. So talk to us a little bit more about that, and what does this spending bill that Congress passed, how does it affect the THC industry, which is exploding, of course, and the CBD industry, which is more therapeutic than it is people just chasing the high?
No, 100%. I would love to explain possibly just the basics to start, and that's going to cover most likely all the questions. Then you're going to take a raw plant that's been there for hundreds of years, not the one that's been engineered lately in the laboratories and all these genetically made seeds they grew plants from it and supplied all the stores in America. And if you take the raw plant, the THC levels were so low where you almost barely can even find them in the plant, right? And there's also CBD or CBDA, actually, what's truly are in the plant. And those are the things, the cannabinoids that actually our endocannabinoid system makes it. We already producing it, just the way we produce the minerals, vitamins we made from water, right? There's all these different chemistries happening inside of us. It's literally the same process, except it's never been studied enough. Now this new bill is going to allow us to study and research things more and better, which is great. So that was original idea, God's given idea for people empower the most essential system. It's called endocannabinoid system in the human body, so we can be healthy and keep homeostasis in our body 24/7. But what happened is these big companies came in. I even said these people who sold drugs, years ago. And if you're going to see who owns most of these companies is like the people that done all kinds of dirty businesses out there. They're not coming to heal you. They just want to make $1. And they created this market, genetically engineered the seeds that never existed in Mother Nature, does not really have any true health benefits, and literally just brain dead all our nation in the last 5 to 10 years, So there is no THC, high levels of THC in the natural plant. The plant, in order for you to have that high levels of THC, you need to genetically engineer, modify the seeds, and grow these, I call Frankensteins, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the difference. But the CBD, so the THC makes you what you call high. And there's multiple levels of THC. I personally been poisoned by 50% of THC. When I was doing investigations on the farming, and I was traveling around the country, I would walk into the farms and I would ask them to show me, don't tell me, because I was truly doing a real investigations on the farming industry, on the cannabis industries, to know the truth, not to listen to somebody on the podcast, but to know for myself. I literally gave up the whole summer for that. And somebody didn't like me for what I was doing, and they just told me, this is your CBD capsules, try, this is a great product. I was actually driving into my hotel. I took the capsule, I ended up in emergency room. And the next day when I wrote my diagnosis, what happened to me, it says cannabis overdose. I didn't feel like I was overdosed. I truly felt like I was dying, and I have no idea how I was able to drive myself into the emergency room. I can't even imagine this is what's happening on a daily. Like, I truly thought I'm dying, but that's what's happening right now. As you go to the store and you purchase these 50 mgs of the THC, and you just smoke or you eat or whatever you do, and if you feel the way I felt, I call this a zombie mode. Mm-hmm. And thank goodness the bill just passed.
So the bill that passed now, is this affecting the THC industry, or is it affecting the non-psychoactive hemp and CBD industries only? Because when I think of hemp, I don't think of an intoxicating substance. I think of hemp as the fibers that are giving us the paper, that are giving us the, of course, hemp rope. That there's the fabrics that are made out of hemp. You have hemp seed oil. That you have the hemp seeds themselves, the non-intoxicating hemp seeds. So there are a lot of product, and it's a very, very useful product. And of course, prior to, I think it was in the early 1900s, you started to see the shift. The paper industry was trying to push the hemp industry out because the wood pulp industry was, there was a very, very, very big dollar industry back then. That's where you started to see the push. What's the movie there from the 30s? Reefer Madness, and there was this push that that marijuana was the devil's weed, and so everything was swept up in this. Hemp was hemp, period. Maybe you made rope out of it, maybe you smoked it, but it was bad, and we have to get rid of it. What does this particular bill seek to ban? The intoxicating THC materials, or the hemp products, or both?
No, that's what we right now. The new bill just passed. It actually allows to have 0.4 milligrams of THC, which is beyond extremely low, almost not findable amounts of THC in the entire container. So basically, all the products, even the CBD or hemp products that currently right now on the market, will have barely or any, I don't even know how they're going to make it through, because to be honest with whatever the standards right now, none of them are compliant with this new bill at this very moment. And I'm sure companies might try to do something. The companies that always done good and always wanted to do good, they're just going to stay, and they're not going to face anything here. So, but the companies are focused on this massive, what you call get people high. And keep in mind, the biggest thing, we have never had regulations for quality, which is hemp is known also as a soil cleaner. As we know, our soil is not clean. So if you want to grow hemp for medicinal purposes, even if there's no THC in it, then most likely your hemp, as you said, is being used for papers, been used for household, for building homes, actually breathable homes. There's no mold in it, right? You can create clothing out of hemp. Hemp is one of the most essential elements to inside out human body. You can literally survive for the rest of your life. You can eat, you can empower your body, you can sustain yourself, you can sustain your cattle, you can sustain your land, clean your soil. Hemp, you can do everything. The problem is, we never had a clean product regulations. So we had always these THCs plus hemp is a soil cleaner, which is a great soil cleaner. It's full of toxins. The product's been sold under-labeled. The labels would never tell you exactly how much of THC is in it. Right now, it's a new law. They have to follow the law. People are going to go into jail for that, right? If they don't, which is great news for the country. And at the same time, I really hope they're going to put additional, regulations for quality control, because it's very, very hard to grow truly, truly clean medicinal hemp, because by nature, hemp likes to suck everything around the soil and just as a sponge to hold everything in it. So that's the hard part, to grow actually hemp in a medicinal way.
So this would essentially ban on a federal level anything that has more than 0.4 of a milligram total THC on a federal level. But this would not, if I'm understanding you correctly, this does not ban industrial hemp, only the THC product.
Yes, correct. Exactly. It does ban 0.4 milligrams per container. So if your container is more large, that's it. Like, you need to figure it out. Like, this is such a small amount where you basically have nothing, but there is no toxicity for your brain. It's all these medicinal properties for you to feel good, to reduce your inflammation, to take your pain away, to actually prevent your immune system from, any kind of type of possible damages. It's nothing but the pure health benefits that's actually going to be exposed to the market as of next year, November.
So this legislation would not have a negative impact on the intoxicating CBD, only the THC. Is that correct?
I truly believe the way they're doing it, they're truly trying to remove these major THC companies that never had regulations for anything, quality or labels or anything. And it's about time, and it's absolutely the right thing to do, because as I said, it causes brain dead. And yes, you're right. We're just going to keep on a happy, healthy, medicinal, not toxicated products that actually does nothing but good to your body. In fact, it's been proven scientifically worldwide. There's multiple Nobel Prize winners out there that is not just healthy for you, it's actually essential to you.
So at Thanksgiving last week, we were having a conversation, a family member and I, and they are getting treatment at a local hospital. cancer survivor, and there's some pain issues, and so they are getting treated at a local hospital. There is a specific provision in the healthcare agreement that says if they are using this family member, if this family, and they are actually subject to random screens, if they are using a CBD product or a THC product, that they will immediately be released from the care of this hospital. And my first thing is, okay, that would make sense because the hospital doesn't want anything competing with the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry that the hospital embraces. That's what they do. It's doctors and drugs, doctors and drugs. So if a person is seeking a healthy treatment, if they're seeking a more natural approach to it, in the case of CBD, that would seem like to me like that would be a patient choice. They are expressly prohibited from seeking any type of CBD or THC therapy as a part of this program that they're in. What are your thoughts on that, and what would motivate that?
I truly believe there's a lot of policies because I'm in a health space myself. I actually own the medical facility, and I deal with real science, real data, real blood work, real life cases. And I can say this, that their hospitals are given a protocols what they can do and what they cannot to do. It's very simple. And if anything that's outside the protocol, the doctor, if they don't practice what the protocol is, which is drugs or whatever the rules and regulations, the doctor is not allowed to participate in that business in that hospital. What is the motive? I can possibly see multiple. One, it could be possibly that one or another industry, pharmaceuticals, would want to have a hand on CBD first and control the market before they kind of release it, which is, I kind of had a theory and feeling about this because CBD currently is patented as a drug at this very moment by Food and Drug Administration. So I think they're trying to classify exactly and figure out what is going to be agenda, how they're going to regulate, how they're going to make money. Until then, the hospital has these protocols. And keep in mind, most hospitals are controlled by pharmaceuticals. It's like by the higher power, right? So they can't really do exactly what they want to do. Just like during the COVID times, like they've been told what to do. It's like, this is the protocol you're going to follow. So this is going to be really interesting what's going to happen. But the most important, what we need to understand, and this is what really, really upsets me, that what the President Trump posted on his socials, he didn't say about the CBD just being this wonder medicine that's been around for thousands of years. He said that your body does have endocannabinoid system that already makes this product basically inside of you. And when you lose that product within age, right, through inflammation, stress, oxidative stress, you need to refill your tank. You need to add more to it. Otherwise, you will be deficient. As a result, when you're deficient, you might be depressed. You might, your inflammation skyrocket. You might be, your sleeps is no regular cycles, right? So he didn't say this is going to be greatest drug on the earth and this is what's going to happen. He also mentioned very important element in saying that this is going to be exposing a human endocannabinoid system. That means the medical school now need to accept a new fact that the central nervous system depends on endocannabinoid system. Do you understand that's literally going to shape entire the way our medical books are written about the health and how to treat the patients? Because the central nervous system truly depends on endocannabinoid system. And if you're sitting in a neurology, sorry, it's been a long day, neurology department, you're not going to know what endocannabinoid system is. How are you going to heal the patient? So what the President Trump did, he also mentioned the endocannabinoid system. That means the medical doctors will have to know what is that kind of system is, and they will have to empower that endocannabinoid system with these plants and medicinal properties are given to us.
Now, Anissa, I don't want to put on my tinfoil helmet here, but I guess I'm going to just put on my conspiracy theory helmet here for just a second. And that is, you talk about healing a patient. I don't believe that the current medical industry and doctors and the pharmaceutical. Maybe there are some doctors that have actually taken their Hippocratic oath seriously. But I think by and large, I think many doctors and certainly the pharmaceutical industry is not interested in healing. They're interested in providing long-term terminal management, meaning if you have a disease, if you have a condition, something like that, we're going to give you a product that you are going to be dependent upon for the rest of your life that is going to mask symptoms or maybe hide the problem but never cure it, because if we cure you, then we've lost a customer. Is this a conspiracy theory, or do you think that this is something that in the healthcare industry today, this is a barrier to people actually having quality remedies for whatever situations they happen to be dealing with or suffering from?
Through all my companies in the last 8 years, I probably worked within anywhere from 10 to 1,000 people. And every single one of them, 98% of ladies said the same thing. I do not trust the doctors. They never helped me. They add me more medications, and they never fixed my problems. In fact, my health gotten worse. So I mean, that's a pretty large number, and this is just me sitting in Chicago being an ESSA, right? So I personally believe that seeing what people experience, and no, there is no such thing as intent to actually stop the customer. You want to have that every single month. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Which is when we talk to our clients and patients in our facilities and consulting company, we literally ask them to make sure they go all the way through the journey where they never ever return back to the supplement industries, insurance companies, or their pharmaceutical doctors, or whatever they need to. We literally tell them they will never be a returning customer to anybody else. Teach lifestyle. We're gonna help them to heal within root of the causes, which just takes forever to find them, but we're doing a great job of doing that. And that's what I call a true healing, is when you not seeing the patient again. And you know what's killing our country is the greed. Because now we have over 300 million Americans are no longer just sick, it's a pandemic. Everybody's walking with the fatty liver. Our 9-year-old kids on the beach are literally walking with the fatty livers. Why we want to have so much money? Let's heal what we have right now. There's another 100 million people going to be born in the next 5 to 10 years that we will need to heal, because just through the vaccines, how much damage we done through the DNA. Like, we already see that. It's been loud and clear what's been happening. So we have a lifetimes how much money we can make just by people and never returning them back to any kind of type of subscription model to pharmacy, even holistic doctors, right? Because there's so much work needs to be done on this earth, and nobody consider that to even make money the right way, right? So that's the sad part. No, I personally don't believe the doctors has the best intention. There's no asked.
So, and just a point of clarification on this. So if a person is in an occupation where they would be subjected to drug screens, if they are using a CBD product, that will not cause them to test positive for marijuana, correct?
100%. That should be the case. But again, you're dealing with the biological body. So sometimes your body, even taking too much oregano, can trigger that endocrine system, because you remember you make almost the same thing as in the plant. So our bodies produces these tiny kind of cannabinoids. Like hemp plant or myself, I'm barely any difference between us. You see, but again, we have to separate. Are you talking about THC? We're not talking about THC. This is outside the picture. We're not touching the subject. It's never been part, has nothing to do with the mother nature. It's all engineered stuff that never supposed to be here in the first place. But if you're talking about true medicinal, a hemp plant, what the scientists find out that we basically produced these indigenous ones, same ones as almost the same ones as the plant makes. They are mimicking. They're almost the same thing. So I believe that's what's happening.
All right. This is, listen, I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation. And I think I'd love to get you back on again to talk a little bit more about it in depth, because I don't think we really did a good job of even scratching the surface in the short time that we had here. But Anisa, I want to thank you so much for your time this evening. And Nisa's Hemp, if people want to learn more about this, what's the website they can visit?
The easiest way is to go Nesas Hemp, NESAS, which is nesashemp.com. Easy to find us online.
All right. Anisa, thank you so much for your time this evening. God bless. Keep up the good work. Keep in touch, and we'll get you back on again soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to take a very, very quick break. When Granite State Live continues, we're going to be joined by Dennis Neal, author of the upcoming book, Oregoners. Can the Pacific Northwest serve as a lesson to the people in New York, especially now with the upcoming mayoral administration of Zoran Mamdani? Well, that remains to be seen. Dennis Neal will join us, and Granite State Live continues right after this. Don't go away.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
I'm Chris Jakomick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakomick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
In a nation divided, in a time of shadows, and rises a call that echoes through every valley, every church, every heart that still believes in truth. For Christ and Country tells the powerful story of conviction, courage, and unwavering faith in the face of opposition. It is the story of a man who refused to bow. In these pages, you'll witness a modern struggle for truth, a stand not just for one man, but for every American who believes that faith still matters. From author Drew Thomas Allen comes a stirring tribute to courage, sacrifice, and the unshakable hope found in Christ. This is the time. This is the fight. This is the story of a nation worth saving, for Christ and for country.
Well, thank you for that little glimpse of that. Was perfect. Look at that. We had some cute little deer running around. It just makes me think of Marissa Tomei's little monologue there in My Cousin Vinny. You remember that? You should pull that up and play that one if you can find that clip, because that's definitely a favorite. All right, welcome back to Granite State Live on this Tuesday. Actually, it's the top of the hour, so we'll go through and we'll do the introduction all over again. Welcome to a brand spanking new edition of Granite State Live. Great to have you along on this Tuesday evening, the 9th day of December 2025. I'm your host, Keith Hansen, the unapologetic contrarian conservative, never apologizing for my toxic white masculinity. Can't help it, kids. I was born this way. Never apologizing for always being heavily armed as well, too, and never apologizing for my Christian faith. Our call-in number, if you would like to be a part of tonight's program, make that nice and easy for you, 833-603-8255. That's 833-603-TALK. And if you would like to join the program via video, you can do that as well, too. GraniteStateLive@gmail.com. That's GraniteStateLive@gmail.com. Put the words video link in the subject line, and the production team will get that link out to you lickety-split. All right, so this is going to be a good conversation because I had some personal experience with this. I was out traveling to the Pacific Northwest, specifically Seattle. I was in Seattle, I was in Portland, and one other town. I don't remember exactly where it was. It was in Oregon. The name escapes me at this point in time. But anyway, I was out there for 5 days, and I got to be honest with you. If I never go back there, I would be okay with that. It's a beautiful area, and I think it would be a really, really nice area to be in if it wasn't for the fact that I was constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering whether or not I was going to have to literally pop some drug-saddled zombie who was walking through the streets. This is the socialist utopia. All right. All cops are bastards. All cops are banned. There's like no police officers anywhere. You have mobile drug vans. And I'm not kidding you about this. We were at a red light, and there was a Toyota 4Runner that had wood paneling where the windows should be. And there was a ventilation, little ventilation fan that was in the back. So I wound up asking somebody, I said, what? And I noticed there were a bunch of these vehicles that were over the place, and there were barcodes on them. So if you scan the barcode, it would go to somebody's Venmo account. And so I was asking, well, what is this? It's a mobile meth smoking lab. You can walk in there, you can scan it, you can pay your $25, you get your hit of crystal meth, and you can go into the back and you can smoke it. And it's legal. And if you want to shoot up drugs, it's legal. I mean, we're not talking about people smoking dope in a back alley. We're talking about people that are using hard drugs, methamphetamine, heroin, presumably smoking crack. I mean, I'm assuming people probably aren't blowing lines of coke, in the middle of the town green. They're probably doing that in the bathrooms of the concert halls and everything else. But this is hardcore drug use. And you would want to bring your children to the downtown area. You would want to go to a movie theater. You'd want to go to a show. You'd want to go to a Christmas tree lighting when you literally have drugged out zombies staggering around, wondering whether or not you're going to become potentially the victim of somebody's psychotic break, that you're going to potentially become the subject of an armed robbery because, hey, you know what? You can buy your drugs anywhere. Let's just go get more money and get more drugs. It's a beautiful area, but in the same breath, it's literally hell on earth. People travel to these areas because they know they can do what they want, when they want, and there are virtually no consequences. The once great city of New York turning into a Seattle, turning into a Portland, turning into a drug and crime-infested hellhole that people can't wait to get out of. And instead of looking at, and I hate to use the word progress, I'm going to use it in the correct term, the progress that critically thinking politicians have made, reducing crime, reducing the negative impacts of a progressive agenda, having businesses flourishing, having people be successful and thrive, having families out, being able to go and do things that families would normally do, like go to a Christmas tree lighting or maybe ice skate in a public area. They turn around and vote for somebody like Mamdani that is literally going to take anything that was good about the once great city of New York and turn it inside out. Because again, I challenge you, 833-603-8255, tell me one thing that progressive Democrats have actually latched their little grimy hands onto and improved. We can give you a laundry list of things that they've gotten a hold of and have utterly destroyed. Dennis Neal, author of the upcoming book Oregoners, is an award-winning journalist, media strategist, advisor to senior executives, and the host of the What's Bugging Me podcast on the Ricochet Network. I love that. What's Bugging Me? I don't think there would be enough time for me to do a podcast on What's Bugging Me, Dennis, but what's bugging you? Welcome to the program.
It's so good to see you. And Keith, I feel like we got to say, and now that'll do it for Dennis. We'll be right back because you just stepped on every line I had. That was absolutely eloquent, and you're blowing me off the stage here. Never show up your guests, sir. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being here. I'm talking to you now from my hotel room near the convention center near downtown Portland. I went to a big 23rd annual leadership conference yesterday. And I saw the governor give her speech and her outlook. She's already running for re-election. Everyone expects her to win. I saw the mayor give his outlook, in which he dropped this little bomb. Foot traffic is off 50% from pre-COVID downtown. You've got 3 major hotels all in receivership. The mayor is brand new and just opened up, and 3 months later, boom, taken over by the bank. You've got all kinds of these these problems. And yet the leaders of Oregon and Portland, they aren't scared enough yet. They're in denial. It's such a beautiful state and city in so many ways. And in the 2010s, they were growing like gangbusters. They could do no wrong. And then in the more recent 5 years, they've raised income taxes of all kinds, and the quality of life has plunged. Fourth grade reading and eighth grade math, or vice versa, are at the national lows, despite spending more per capita than the national average. Homelessness in Portland metro region, 4 times the national average per capita. Second highest tax rates of any city in the country after only New York. But as even Portlanders were telling me this week, but we're no New York City. Crime rampant. I interviewed a lawyer, beautiful person. She's downtown for 20 years, attacked a year ago by a homeless drug abuser. She screams for help. 2 sheriff's deputies from the county. Nation City has so few cops rush and save her. Otherwise, it would have been even worse. She moves out of her office and never moves back ever again. Vacancy rates almost near 40%. I talked to an expert today at breakfast who said, I criticized the mayor. I went up afterward and interviewed him, asked him, what do you mean that foot traffic down 50% since pre-COVID? It's going to take till 2030 to get all the way back up? That's not aggressive enough. Set a bigger goal, a sooner goal. He said, you don't want to fail because there'd be so much pushback. But I disagreed with it. And then I talked to an economic expert about it. And he said, look, with the vacancies in these huge office buildings like Big Pink, 42 stories, just bought for only less than $50 million after selling for almost $400 million in 2015. He said it's going to take us that long to get foot traffic to fill up all of these big vacancies in these storefronts. So this is a city and a state in trouble. And yet the leaders are simply not scared enough. There's a new poll that shows 67% of registered voters in Oregon agree with the statement that we're on the seriously wrong track. 67%.
So when you talk about the fourfold increase in homelessness, is it because of the policies that are driving people out of their homes? Or is it for the reason that I alluded to earlier, which is people are looking at this and saying, hey, listen, I want to go get blasted out of my gourd. I'm going to go to Seattle. I'm going to go to Portland because they're going to put up with the types of garbage that I can't get away with in my own state. So I'm going to make the drug pilgrimage to the Pacific Northwest.
Well, okay, so a couple things on that. Let me unfold a few things. Okay, so homelessness, it's 4 times the national average per capita. It's up 60% in 2 years. And, I came here 2 weeks ago and now I'm back visiting again. And the first day here, 2 weeks ago, I go with a driver. He's got his own business. In the early 2000s, he himself was homeless and addicted to opioids for 4 years. And he told me something that I hadn't thought of before. He said, if you want to end homelessness, make it as absolutely miserable as possible. Here, we make it as comfortable as possible. The county hands out tents and tarps. Camp almost anywhere you want. A Supreme Court ruling says so. And then the state legislature passes a law making it even easier to have those home encampments. And so they camp in front of businesses and they camp on highway underpasses and just about anywhere. Open air drug markets. I mean, all of these things come around and you start in what one expert here, Mike Wilkerson, calls a doom loop. Now you've got $1 billion a year, Keith, in income. High earners, highest performers, who are the highest tax, leaving, which means that tax revenues go down, which means services go down. The problem, they say, is that taxes are super high, but services are terrible. The cops take more than 20 minutes to respond to a violent 911 call. I had lunch with a guy today, a lawyer, John DiLorenzo, who's filed a new petition. He's raising thousands of signatures to get it on the ballot, saying Multnomah County, which includes Portland, is so bad at prosecuting crime that we now hereby approve giving any victim of a property crime $2,500. And he's doing that to force the county, because insurance won't pay that. The county budget would have to pay that. And he wants to almost extort them into enforcing the law and arresting people and having enough jail space to keep people in jail. It's that bad. And yet safety is one of the most basic things you need to have good quality of life. They don't feel like they have it in Portland.
But I in talking to people in both Washington State and in Oregon, you have people who are concerned that if they were in a position where they had to use some manner of force to defend themselves, defend a family member, or defend their property, defend their businesses, that they would be concerned that the person who initiated the use of force wouldn't be prosecuted. They would be prosecuted for using force, because you're going to have a leftist judicial system that's going to look at them and say, how dare you use force against this person who was stealing from you because they had to feed themselves, or perhaps their drug habit.
Right. I had a homeless expert, Kevin Dahlgren. He worked for homeless agencies for years. Then he kind of broke from it. He said, this is a homeless industrial complex. They have a profit motive. They're not going to solve a problem if it puts their own organization out of business. And he talked exactly about this kind of thing. He said, the homeless are viewed as these incredibly honorable victims of capitalism, when instead they're victims of their own choices. He estimates 90% of the homeless are drug addicted. 70%, he estimates, and he's out every day posting videos on X under Kevin Dahlgren. 70%, he estimates, are mentally ill, which is why they end up getting on drugs. He tells me that homeless people who move to the city, because it is such great benefits, 1 out of every 6 people are on SNAP here, including, by one estimate I heard, 25% single men, able-bodied, versus 1 out of 8 people nationwide. This place is the 16th, I believe, one of the 16th richest state, yet is like one of the top few states in SNAP assistance. So people come here, outsiders, 25% of homeless, another estimate is that from outsiders, they come here for the good conditions, but then the homeless people won't take them in unless they get on drugs too, because otherwise I'll be unfortunate. And so this expert, Kevin, insisted that there are people who come here and then get on drugs. This morning I was in an Apple store, and I talked to this loopy-looking, interesting, young blonde woman, 39 years old. She's wearing all black tights, some big kind of scarf, and she looks like an artist or something, and these hot pink knit hot pants over the tights, and she's just there hanging in the Apple store. And she tells me she used to work there, and she's on the streets now and homeless, insists that she's not on any kind of drugs. But her life fell apart, and she's working on putting it back together. So homelessness is everywhere. And when I walked around downtown, when I first moved to New York in the early 80s, it was scary. I flew up to New York my first time, Keith, for a job interview with the Wall Street Journal the next morning, and I was almost mugged in the airport. It was that bad. And so you were vigilant or in fear walking around the early 80s. Then came 4 terms of Republican mayors in a row, Giuliani, Bloomberg, and you weren't afraid anymore. But in the past few years, yes, I get that feeling again. I won't stand near the tracks of the subway. There's been something like 13 murders, as many murders on the subway in 2 years as in the previous 10 or 15 years. I looked up the facts, the stats at one point. And so that you are walking around in a little bit of fear right now. You don't, okay? But I'm not a tough guy like you. I don't walk around wondering who I'm going to have to mess up or shoot. I walk around making sure who I can avoid getting beat up by, frankly. And it weighs on you, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't think it's a situation of being a tough guy. I mean, I'm career law enforcement, so I kind of look at the world in a different perspective. But for me, it's I'm vigilant. I practice what I preach, which is situational awareness. When I'm in a restaurant, when I'm in a public place, when I'm in a parking lot, it's not paranoia. It's just I'm doing a threat analysis on the people in my environment. Yeah. And I have absolutely no problem. I mean, if somebody comes up and tries to rob or assault me or my wife or somebody that happens to be in my, I will shoot you. I have no problem with that. And it can be justified, because I'm not about to press the trigger on somebody who I couldn't justify taking that action. But there are areas where, you open the program up talking about Massachusetts and this influx into New Hampshire, the Granite State, of people from Massachusetts. You don't want to use force to protect yourself as a law-abiding citizen in Massachusetts, because they will lock you up and throw away the key. Same thing in New York, same thing in New Jersey, same thing in Chicago, same thing in California, same thing. Wow. I'm mentioning all of the areas that have really, really, really high crime, and also have the laws that punish law-abiding citizens. So what do? You flee. You get out.
Right. Many years ago, Al Pacino was in a movie called and justice for all, about the crooked justice system in New York. And there's a scene in the courtroom where a defense attorney says, oh, let this guy go, because really he wasn't trying to hurt anybody. He was only trying to take his money. And it was that lenient attitude, where if some robber comes to you and has a gun on you, you should assume he wants to kill you and shoot. You see a lot of footage on X from Latin America where they're pretty free to go after those criminals. A quick word, though, about cops. So 2020 happened, George Floyd riots. Portland, like 2.5–3% black population. Riots for over 100 nights in a row on how terrible the cops are. They cut the cop budget 25%. Cut to 5 years later, business owners are broken into 10 times a year, shattered windows, burglaries over and over again, harassment from homeless camps. Half of the fires in the city, another source told me, are started by homeless people accidentally or otherwise. Cops are now at only 800 in a city limit 650,000. That is 1993 levels. And there's a new proposal that a guy I talked to, Dan Levy, is working with a group. They want to get signatures again to get this on the city ballot. And that says we want to hire 1,200 a total. We want to hire 400 more cops, 50% increase. This would bring the 1.2 per 1,000 people cops up to 2.2 or 2.0, kind of a national average. Where are you going to get the money? Well, there's this climate change fund. They passed a new tax. They thought they'd raise about $30 million a year. It's bringing in far more than that. It's got a surplus of almost $250 million. So, and yet they're just continuing to collect every year because they're not spending it, because they just give the money in NGOs for climate change. Oh, let's focus this money in neighborhoods that have been neglected in the past, that have been more affected by climate change. How is it that climate change affects a black poor neighborhood more than a rich white neighborhood? I don't understand that. It doesn't. It's just a slush fund for handing out money to NGOs. It's just craziness.
Well, you talk about the businesses that have been broken into and had their windows smashed and vandalized. I remember a scene from the 1992 LA riots where you had entire neighborhoods that were burning, and there was this one store that remained standing. And on the top of that building, on the roof of that building, stood a Korean man with, I believe it was an AK-47, might have been an AR-15, I don't know. He was armed. And you know what? Nobody screwed with that guy's business. And I for one think that's fantastic. If your business is being vandalized, if your business is being broken into, then show force. Sooner or later. And this is the thing, whether it's progressive politicians or criminals. And I've said this so many times, Dennis, on my media. Criminals and bullies and thugs and tyrants, they only respect one thing: force. So give it to them. Give it to them, because they look for the weak. They look for people that they can take down. They look for people that they can intimidate. So show them that you're not, Bernie Getz did it. And it was amazing. Yeah. The only thing that Bernie Getz got charged with was actually convicted of, was unlawful possession of a firearm. Here's a guy that was getting his ass kicked on a regular basis in the subways in New York, and he said, enough is enough. And he went out and he got himself a firearm, and he shot the bastards. I am all for that.
Yeah. I've been in New York 40 years. I remember that happening. I actually knew a friend who lived in Bernie Getz's building. And, when she would get on the elevator with him, she'd kind of say, hey, just going to push the button here. Are we okay? Are we okay? To make sure he's not going to get upset. Yeah. But I agree with you on a lot of that. I like the Florida stand your ground law, because at some point, and even without armed and without danger, at some point you have to stand up and fight back and be heard. And one problem is the silent majority of this country and the conservatives, some of them, they don't do that enough. And in Portland and Oregon, if you dare break the dogma, the Democrat, incredibly uber liberal dogma here, and dare speak up, they retaliate like crazy. Amy Nichols owns the Cheerful Tortoise and the Cheerful Bullpen, two sports bars that have been here for 75 plus years. And she goes on Fox Business to talk about problems downtown and homelessness and crime. And instantly, half a dozen complaints on Yelp and to the health department, insisting they got food poisoning, and the health department sends in an inspector, and the liquor board sends in an inspector, and the lotto people send in an inspector for her poker machines, and it's just harassment because she dared speak up and complain. There's a conspiracy of silence here. And it's pointed out to me, one lawyer I talked to, the business community, she says, are just a bunch of wimps. They're afraid to stand up and fight back. And another guy said they have traded acquiescence the business community has for access. They're happy to be at the table, even though they are on the menu. And business just keeps taking it in the neck. But at this leadership conference yesterday, there's new hope among business leaders and others that maybe the elected class are beginning to get it, and they realize that they're headed toward a crisis if they don't do something to change their ways. Only problem is Mayor Wilson, I believe it is, Keith Wilson. I was in a session with him, and I went up and asked him a question afterward. And among the reforms they're talking about, he says, a fair tax structure. But someone asked, like what? And they don't say the one thing they should be saying: tax cuts. Cut your taxes. You've overdone it. It's 13.9%, I think the figure is, in city income taxes of various kinds, tacked on top of the state's 9.9% tax level. Now that's on top of federal. It's simply crushing in its weight. And they passed 3 new taxes in the past few years on income, not on kind of just a fee or something, but an extra on top, one for climate change, another for homeless, and another for preschool for all. They wanted every kid to be able to attend free pre-kindergarten, by golly. And so we're going to pass an extra tax, I think it's less than a 1%, on only people who earn $250,000 a year or more. But guess what? You people who earn that much, you can't send your kids to the free preschool that you're having to pay for. So they thought they'd have 30,000, I think, or 40,000 kids signed up the first couple of years. It's now more than a year later. They've got 2,200 children. They don't have the infrastructure to teach every single child.
You mentioned the homeless tax. What is the homeless tax?
Right. I think that this is a corporate activity tax. So it's an additional percentage or 2 point on top of any company with more than $1 million in revenue. And the thing is, when you're a retailer, your margins are very thin. So when you suddenly take a 4 point or 5 point margin, if you're lucky to have it, and suddenly an extra point or 2 is being taken away, that's like 40% of your profit, really. And so it's just devastating. And it's why big companies are leaving. Intel has slashed 7,000 jobs, even as it expands in Phoenix. Columbia Sportswear, founded by billionaire Tim Boyle. He's said to be one of 3 or 4 billionaires. That's all in all of Oregon. He moved a brand, one of his brands, kind of out of the city and moved the headquarters elsewhere. And here's the weird thing. In Clark County, it's like 15 or 20 minutes away. Okay, right over the line. Clark County is Washington. They've totally recovered their foot traffic downtown from COVID. They've totally recovered their job base. And so it's a neighboring city, neighboring county, and yet it's doing so much better. So you can't just blame the place where you are. This is because of your policies. And I had a Democrat operative. He's considered to be, another guy told me, the best political advisor Democrat in the state, Kevin Looper. And he takes a lot of credit, and they say he should, for helping the state become a supermajority Democrat state in both houses. And he told me at lunch last time I was here, the problem is, Dennis, I realize that, if we don't have a loyal opposition or even a disloyal opposition, if we're just in control of everything, you don't have any diversity of ideas. You don't have any accountability. And another guy told me this yesterday at the conference. Every entity in the world judges its actions and what it's doing by its results, except government. In a government, and especially here, there's no accountability. It's not judged based on results. It's just judged based on whether we keep getting elected. And when the Democrats are so dominant that they keep getting reelected, there's never going to be accountability for how much government is screwing up.
So, I just kind of a breaking news story here. Democrat Eileen Higgins just won the Miami mayoral race. I mean, this is
sure this is going to be seen as, here comes the anti-Trump wave. Oh my gosh, they're going to lose the midterms. But I just remind you, please, let's go back to the midterms of 2022, where Vanity Fair described that red trickle, how terrible it was, and Trump has been kneed in the groin. He's been over and coughing up blood, is the way they decided to describe him. Trump was done. The midterms of 2022 were so bad. So I don't count him out.
I mean, this is as of right now. I mean, the spreads are pretty interesting. Eileen Higgins, 59.4%. Emilio Gonzalez, the Republican challenger, for an incumbent, 40.6%. I mean, that's a pretty big spread. You look at Miami, you look at Portland, you look at Seattle, you look at New York, you look at. I mean, this does not fare well for these cities. What are these cities going to look like in 2 years, in 4 years? I mean, let's take the midterms and everything else and focus.
Did you say she defeated the incumbent?
Eileen Higgins defeated Republican Emilio Gonzalez, Miami city manager who has been endorsed by Trump.
Oh, I see, city manager. Okay. Wow, I'm surprised because Miami is such a Cuban vote, and legal immigrants usually dislike the Biden border policies, let all the illegals in because the legal people follow the rules to get here, So that's kind of surprising. And I'm sure the New York Times is going to make hay with that tomorrow.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially in New York. And I found it very interesting that Mamdani goes into the White House and has this chuckle fest with Trump, and they walk out like buddy. Yes. It just kind of makes me wonder what the hell's going on there. But you know what? Hey, listen, for you, with your What's Bugging Me podcast, and here, it certainly gives us lots of fodder to talk about. Yes. The conservative talk media industry. It's like Christmas morning every morning. The progressive left keeps giving us all the talking points we need. Dennis, Dennis Neal, I want to thank you so much for jumping on the program. Be sure to check out the book Oregoners, and also check out the podcast What's Bugging Me. I know I'm going to check that out as well too. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, man. Have a great night.
We're going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're going to check in with Kenneth Abramowitz, author of The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. Basically, protecting America from everything. We're going to be talking about Zelensky nuking the peace deal with Russia. Headline on the Drudge Report now that Trump and... I'll actually give you the headline directly here. It's Trump sides with Russia in Ukraine war, Christmas deadline, and Europe turning on the United States. All kinds of good things coming up. So we're going to have that conversation with Kenneth Abramowitz when Granite State Live continues. Don't go away.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. In this raw, anti-heroic tale, Tyler Gray dissects his life, exposing the unseen war within and exploring the question, what happens when the very abilities that made you a superhero in the eyes of the world turn you into a supervillain in your own life? Despite rising PTSD awareness, we're losing more warriors at home than in war. Forged in Chaos rips the mask off the warrior experience, exposing the truth that most never dare to face. Find Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story, written by Tyler Gray on Amazon.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. Welcome back to Granite State Live on this Tuesday evening, the 9th day of December 2025. Before we get into the next topic here, something that I did want to bring up, and this was interesting. Australia launching the first youth social media ban that it says will be the world's first domino. More than 1 million social media accounts held by users under 16 are set to be deactivated in Australia in a divisive world-first ban that is being closely watched everywhere. And interestingly enough, a new report, you need a report to tell you this. Social media is absolutely nuking children's brains. That's a headline on futurism.com. A study suggesting that it's specifically social media that is affecting children's ability to concentrate. You think? You know, there's a reason why TikTok and now YouTube are doing shorts. You know, those little, I don't even know how to describe them, but they're not the full-size, full-length videos. They're 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds. And you know why? Because people have an ever-diminishing attention span. Have you noticed even that commercials are no longer 60? They used to be 60, unless they're advertising drugs. Maybe that's a 60-second spot because you need 45 seconds to actually go through the list of side effects if you take that particular drug. But that notwithstanding, you're talking about segments, advertising that's maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds tops. Why? Because people are becoming stupid. People have shrinking attention spans. They cannot hold their attention for longer than 5 or 10 or 15 seconds. You need a study to tell you this? A barrage of AI-generated brain rot haunting children across numerous screens, from personal smartphones to school-issued laptops to televisions. Social media is adding significantly to that cacophony, making it harder than ever for kids to concentrate. Now, new research from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden and Oregon Health and Science Institute has found a significant link between screen time and the diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, suggesting that exposing young brains to social media could have major health implications, mental health implications. You need a study to tell you this? The pandemic was one of the worst things that could have possibly happened to kids, not because of the pandemic, but because of the isolation of these kids and the dependency on screens. If you are a parent and you have the ability to break your child's addiction to a screen, for the love of God, do it. Have them actually go out and enjoy life. There is a world outside of TikTok and YouTube and Roblox. Why the hell you would have your kid in front of a screen on Roblox when your kids are being solicited for nudies? You think this is an exaggeration? No, it's not. This is corporatism at its worst, because it perpetuates environments where pedophiles and perverts love to play. Yeah, keep giving your kids screens. We're going to see how well that works out. All right, but of course I digress. All right, as I had mentioned earlier, the headline right now on the Drudge Report, and I just want to pull this up because, of course, it's ever-changing, but I think this is going to be one that's going to be a topic here for quite a while. This is currently Trump siding with Russia in Ukraine war, Christmas deadline, Europe turning on the United States. Zelensky now nuking a peace deal with Russia. The war won't end if Zelensky remains in power. I think one of the big questions here is, how has this guy managed to stay in power as long as he has? And to be honest with you, my question is, why hasn't this guy been taken out yet? I figured there would have been an assassination a long time ago. Kenneth Abramowitz, author of The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Pretty Much Everything, Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife, joining us on the video feed. Kenneth, great to have you on the program. Welcome. Am I out of line here by asking why Zelensky hasn't been taken out as of yet?
Well, you can also ask, why hasn't Putin been taken out? So, I mean, this war has been massively damaging to both countries. But Putin did start it and thought he was going to end it in like 2 weeks, and it ended up being an albatross around Putin's neck. And Zelensky's done his best to maintain the 80% of Ukraine that he still has. So I would say the war is a disaster for both leaders, and but it's an extra disaster for Russia. Russia didn't have to do this. Russia's only the largest country in the world. They have 11% of the landmass. They've been fighting for 1,000 years, conquering, and they just can't seem to stop conquering. And so they got themselves into a mess. So both leaders, I think Putin's in bigger danger than Zelensky, frankly, because Putin, everyone has their knives out in Russia. And if Putin compromises too much, they'll kill him. And if he doesn't compromise, they'll destroy the Russian economy and they'll kill him. So I think Putin's in bigger danger than Zelensky.
Let me ask you this. What if the United States just takes a hands-off approach on this? What would the outcome, the negative outcome, be for the United States if we just said, hey, listen, you know what? Not our circus, not our monkeys. We don't want to be involved in this. Why are we playing referee on this? And why are we taking sides, period? What would be the benefit if we said, you know what, we're taking a hands-off approach on this?
Well, bear in mind, there's around 10 kinetic wars going on in the world today. And if you're America, you have to win all 10. President Trump's publicly said years, we're going to win. We're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning. So when you have a war between the Ukraine and Russia, call Ukraine the West and Russia should be part of the West. They're a Christian country. The two Christian countries shouldn't be fighting each other, but they are. So you have that's war number one. You have Israel versus Iran. That's number two. You have Taiwan versus China. That's number three. U.S. versus Venezuela. That's number four. You have a potential war between Japan and China. That's number five. You have the Muslims killing the Christians in Nigeria. That's number six. So the point I'm getting to is when the world's a big fishbowl. We think the world's like huge and it doesn't matter what happens over there. But in a big fishbowl, if you show weakness to one of your enemies, then China will say, oh, great, let's take over Taiwan. Or Iran will say, oh, great, let's Israel again. Or the Muslims in Nigeria will say, oh, good, let's kill another 25,000 Christians. So the way I look at life is everything's interrelated to everything. And America should be strong everywhere, every front, with every enemy, in every form of warfare.
I think it puts us in a precarious position because, now with taking sides, if things don't work out, I understand the delicate nature of diplomacy. Keep your enemies close and keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. I get that, at least in theory. But this is such a sticky situation, and again, with everything else that's going on, with basically with ostensibly a war going on with China, a trade war going on with China blocking critical minerals and the critical elements that are needed for the military infrastructure, for technology. There's a lot of things here at stake, and you've always got the conspiracy theories here about what the war in the Ukraine is really about. Is it blackmail? Is it money laundering? Is it some type of ongoing criminal enterprise? Always makes a really good conversation for a cigar and a single malt scotch. But again, I keep going back to this. Now this is from Telegraph.co.uk. Donald Trump has told Zelensky he has until Christmas to accept his deal to end the war with Russia, and then the two presidential envoys, Kushner and Witkoff, delivering the warning in a 2-hour-long phone call with Zelensky after their recent talks with Putin. I think a lot of people have looked at this Russia-Ukraine war here as the potential for the incipient stage of World War III. Is that a legitimate concern, or is this just the fear-mongering that comes from international conflict that may not necessarily be understood by a lot of people?
Well, according to me, we're in World War III. We've been in World War III for a lot of years. And in the way I calculate, we're fighting on 21 mini-wars simultaneously. If you give me 1 minute, I'll try to explain it in 1 minute. The enemies are the reds, the greens, and the blues. I color code them. Reds are the communists. That's China. Russia's no longer a communist country. It's an authoritarian country. But let's put China, Russia, North Korea are the reds. Also Venezuela, Cuba. The greens are the Islamist countries. That would be Iran and Qatar, trying to impose Islam on the world. And number 3 are the blues, color-coded blue for the UN. That's the United Nations, World Economic Forum, and the drug cartels. And they're fighting us with 7 forms of warfare. Kinetic, obviously, things blow up. Chemical, biological. By the way, you, your audience, me, we're all cultural warriors. We fight with our words, not with bullets or uniforms. Number 4, economics. Number 5, legal. Number 6, demographics. Number 7, cyber. So if you have 3 groups of bad guys and you multiply by 7 forms of warfare, there's 21 mini wars. So I would argue that our goal should be to win 21 mini wars. Now, if you say, well, that's a lot of wars to fight, and that's a lot of money, and we have a $2 trillion deficit, and something has to give, and you say, well, let's lose war number 14. My response is, if you lose war number 14, all the enemies will be emboldened to attack you in other places and other forms of warfare. So that's why I want to win 21 mini wars simultaneously without spending a gazillion dollars in driving the budget deficit up. Because I think if you stay strong, then the bad guys won't challenge you. Whereas if you demonstrate weakness in one of the 21 fronts, then the bad guys will challenge you. It'll actually cost you more money. Think of it as like you're pretend you're on a bad street and there's a bunch of bad guys. Let's say 21 bad guys. You're not going to kill or stop or 21 bad guys. But if you beat up one of them, the other 20 will say, "Get out of here! This guy's a lunatic. Let me out of here." So I think we should stay strong everywhere. So I'm not a big fan of trusting Putin very much on a deal. But I respect President, and also I haven't seen all the aspects of the deal, and so I know President Trump wants to get this behind him. He wants Russia to be part of West again, and whether they're a Christian country, they should be part of the West again. So I see what he's trying to do, and so be it.
I just think it's when you talk about all of those different fronts, it's impossible to be all places at all times, and so when you look at the existential threats, certainly China, it's amazing. We really haven't heard much out of North Korea recently. Don't know what's going on over there, what they're planning, what they're plotting. I'm sure that, there's some drama that will show up at some point in time. But when you look at the number of incursion points for potential issues here, one of the things that I've always said is, we as Americans have had it, by and large, we've had it very easy because we've never had foreign tanks rolling down the middle of Main Street, USA, all Red Dawn. But all that needs to happen is for our attention to be focused on some other region in the world, and it weakens our ability to defend ourselves domestically, and that makes us ripe for a potential invasion because somebody out there is stupid enough to try that at some point in time. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that we can rest on our laurels and think that it wouldn't happen again or that it wouldn't happen, period.
Well, let me mention 2 things. First, if I were the president, by the way, I got no votes. President Trump got 77 million votes. So I'm just speaking as an individual. I would have pulled a Ronald Reagan. I would have bluffed. I would have said, look, we don't like the following aspects of the Russian proposal. We're going to finance Ukraine till the cows come home with Europe. We're going to spend a gazillion dollars on it. Putin would fold in 2 weeks because the prospects of fighting a nonstop and have long-range missiles blowing up Moscow would have been too much, and we could have gotten away with a bluff, just like Reagan's used Star Wars. If you remember the missile defense that was called Star Wars at the time, and Russia said, "We're going to lose this. Let's cave." So I would have done that.
But we
let me
played that
answer this.
game. We played that game already. We played the proxy war in Afghanistan, where we were funding the Afghan rebels against the Soviet army. We've done that before. How well did that work for us? Do we want to get into that again?
Yes, well, so President Trump made the decision that putting words in his mouth, if we played the Ronald Reagan game of tough guy, fight till the cows come home, and Putin would have fallen because another year or two of this and the Russian economy is in a big mess. And Trump thinks he can work with Putin. There's some personal chemistry. I suppose they like each other somewhat. And Trump didn't want the next Putin. Who knows who the next Putin is? And so I think that's why he made the decision that he wants to work with Putin and do the best he can. But let me mention this. Another part of the multi-front war is that just because an enemy is over there, Russia's over there, China's over there. Russia's been invading America for 100 years, but not with troops, but with communist nonsense and nonsense and socialist nonsense, invading our K through 12 schools, invading our teachers' colleges, invading our universities. So we've been fighting a cultural war with Russia for the last 100 years since they were formed in 1917. But because things don't blow up in cultural war, people don't realize that. But the reason I'm not a big fan of Russia is because we're suffering tremendously from the communist nonsense that we have to fight election after election. And we're not doing a great job fighting cultural war against that nonsense. By the way, we're not doing a great job in the Islamist war, in the globalist war. Those three false narratives are invading our schools, our children, our Hollywood, our media, social media. So I'm very sensitive to cultural war as well as physical war.
Well, your organization, SaveTheWest.com, dedicated to saving Western civilization from itself. I would say, and I'm not trying to steer this into a different conversation, but I opened the segment up with talking about what Australia just did with social media. I have always said that the death of Western civilization, the death of humanity itself, is going to come from social media. We're going to kill ourselves, and that when the aliens 500 years from now do the post-mortem on mankind, they're going to find that it was basically a suicide, that we killed ourselves in this technological infancy, not quite adolescence, but still infancy that we happen to be in. I would look at it and say, you know what, far more than the threat of Russia or China is the existential threat that we're facing right now as a civilization because of the dumbing down of our citizens, people in the West, from social media. Why do we have such short attention spans? We have short attention spans because people are addicted to social media. They can't understand, they can't differentiate right from wrong, they can't differentiate real from fantasy. That's what's ultimately going to wind up killing our society. Not the Russians, not the Chinese, not the North Koreans, not the Venezuelans, not the Cubans. We're doing it to ourselves.
Well, remember I mentioned the reds, the greens, and the blues. So you're now talking about the blues. The blues, I color-coded for the United Nations color of their helmets, and that's the globalists. So they have no allegiance to America per se. They can be an American company, but they're trying to maximize their profits worldwide. And by the way, I love corporations. I come from the corporate world. So corporations are money machines, and they try to make money. But the media is corrupt. The social media is partially corrupt. Elon Musk has saved Twitter, and without him, we would have social media would be still 100% corrupt. Also, you have the Chinese with TikTok. It has an algorithm that's making us lose faith in our society, in our civilization. So, yes, this is all part of the cultural war where we fight with words. But behind the cultural war are the bad guys. In other words, China's fingerprints are all over the place. Russia's fingerprints all over the place. Qatar's fingerprints all over the place. And so we might look at it as compartmentalized in media, social media, or Hollywood. But the bad guys are basically bribing and blustering and threatening many Americans in converting them into reds, greens, and blues, and taking away some of their patriotism. So it's not just something that happened by itself. The bad guys' fingerprints are behind it.
At what point, though, as a nation, as a society, do we unify and recognize, it's not a Democrat versus Republican problem. It's the rest of the world against the United States. We need to obviously clean up our own mess here before we can start worrying about fighting wars, overseas or on other continents. But I think one of the big questions here is we are not quite a quarter of the way through Trump's presidency. Had this been, first of all, how do you see this ending over the next 3 or 4 years at the end of President Trump's second term? And then what would this situation look like, and specifically this Russia-Ukraine situation, look like had that been a Democrat president in the White House?
Well, we're obviously much better off with Trump than any Democrat. And by the way, the Democrats are no Democrats. They kept the name Democrat. They are the reds, the greens, and the blues. In other words, when I was describing to you our foreign enemies, those foreign enemies have domestic agents working for them, and those agents are called Democrats. I hate to say that, but that's basically what's happened. So if the Democrats were in power, we would be totally taken over by the reds, the greens, and the blues, by our foreign enemies, without even knowing it necessarily. So with President Trump, we're going to stay an American country. We're going to stay loyal to the Constitution, Bill of Rights, loyal to my favorite line, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for everybody. The Democrats believe in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for me, for my friends, my allies, my 10%, whereas we as Americans believe in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for everybody. We believe all men, women are created equal. So American principles are safe under President Trump. Under the Democrats, we would have lost our American principles.
Well, I believe wholeheartedly, and I don't think this is speculation or conspiracy theory, that Democrats are, by and large, they are anti-American. They hate America. We saw that with Obama. He was a counter-tribalist. He hated America. He hated everything that this country stood for, and he existed for the purposes of advancing the interests of foreign nations above the interests of the United States. No question about it.
That's right. Reds, greens, and blues. Obama was a personification of reds, greens, and blues. So was Harris. Biden was really Obama's third term. So we've been suffering tremendously from the half takeover of our country by, again, what I call the reds, greens, and blues. Fortunately, we have 27 Republican states, and people can migrate from the 23 Democrat states to the Republican states. So we have a safety valve in our country that allows us to save ourselves. But in effect, we're going through a civil war, but it's the same civil war as 1861 to 65. It's just that the Confederates changed their name to Democrats. But if you look at the way they behave like Confederates. They don't accept the Constitution. They don't accept the Bill of Rights. And they don't accept federal interference in state racism and corruption. So to me, we're still fighting the Civil War of 1861 because we, the good people, thought we had, but the bad people didn't think they'd lost it. And so that's why we keep fighting this unfortunate Civil War.
Well, no matter what it is, it's fight, 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 fight. There's always a battle, always a battle. Never let your guard down. Right. You know, it would be nice to just take a break from it all, to be honest with you.
Well, Reagan had it well when he famously said 60, 70 years ago, the loss of freedom is never more than one generation away. So
Absolutely.
Every generation, we have to fight, 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 as you just said.
Absolutely. Kenneth Abramowitz, author of The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. You can check out his website at SaveTheWest.com. Ken, always a pleasure talking to you, my friend. Be well, stay safe, God bless, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And that is going to do it for this Tuesday night edition of Granite State Live. We will be back next week at 7 p.m. to do it all over again. Don't forget, you can always check out the archives at rightamericamedia.com, ramtv.live, and, of course, our good friends over at GraniteGrok, GraniteGrok, GROK.com. That's GraniteGrok.com. Your emails, thoughts, comments, suggestions, GraniteStateLive@gmail.com. That's GraniteStateLive@gmail.com. Until next week, folks, stay safe, be well. Remember, civility works. Be nice to one another. God bless.